This session of Meet the Expert is hosted by Family Resource Center of Umi Child Development Center, which is a team of parents. So it's a team of a team by families for families. So that is Family Resource Center of Umi. And with that, I will go straight into introducing the panel today. So we have Seema Tiwari. Seema Tiwari is is a parent to two sweet daughters, Nehal and Vedika. Seema works as general manager in MTNL and is the author of a book called संघर्ष जो हिंदी में एक बुक है जो उनके और उनकी डॉटर की जर्नी के बारे में बात करता है एंड नेहल जो उनकी बेटी है शी इज 24 years old and is on the spectrum. Nehal has graduated in IT from St. Xavier's College and is working in a renowned multinational company for the last 3 years. Nehal has made her name in stone painting. Her work has been displayed in many exhibitions, and more than 1,300 of her paintings are already sold and appreciated. Uh, and we have Dr. Koyeli on the panel. She's a developmental pediatrician with several years of experience in the field, highly committed pediatrician with specialized training and experience in child development and disabilities. She heads the autism team at UMI, then works closely with families to support them in identifying their child's strengths and challenges, as well as in making informed decisions about treatment and therapy options. Um, Apart from supporting children and families, she's a mentor, listener, and thinker. And we also have Ved Gangoly. Ved is a third year BA student. Um, it was lovely, reading his introduction myself when he shared it with me. He's a third year BA student majoring in history from St. Xavier's College, Mumbai. He's an avid history lover and loves to learn new things. He's also a huge fan of Marvel superhero franchise, citing Spider-Man and Captain America as his favorite superheroes and inspiration. Some of his hobbies include traveling, gymming, listening to music, reading comic books, watching movies and shows, and playing video games. So, with that introduction, we'll just move into some basic guidelines जो शायद सभी अवेयर है इसके बारे में. बस थोड़ा सा रिमाइंडर है कि प्लीज अपने आप को म्यूट पर रखिए ड्यूरिंग द सेशन. You may ask questions in the chat box while panelists are speaking. There will be Q&A question answer session होगा end में. जब आप hand raise करके you can ask your questions. You can also put questions on the chat box. You may ask questions in whichever language you're comfortable in, Hindi or English, you can ask. It's a bilingual panel. Just please keep in mind that आप questions थोड़ा general nature पे रखें. कोई specific personal questions we may not be able to take up in this panel. So please try to keep questions general so that सब benefit कर सके answers. So with that, I will stop here and I will hand over to Dr. Koyeli. So she will begin the session for us today. So over to you, Koyeli.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to quickly look for my PowerPoint. And okay. I think I've started with the last slide. You would think that things should get easier if you've done them enough times, but apparently they something very weird happening. Okay. Did we get there finally? Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for bearing with me. Um, so as Revati mentioned, this session today is brought to you by the Family Resource Center at Umi Child Development Center, जो कि मुंबई में है. और मैं आज कोशिश करूंगी कि मैं इंग्लिश और हिंदी दोनों में बात करूं. हालांकि स्लाइड्स मेरे इंग्लिश में है, बट मैं कोशिश करूंगी कि साथ साथ में मैं हिंदी में भी बोलूं, ताकि अगर ऐसे कोई लोग हैं जो हिंदी प्रेफर करते हैं तो हुई हूँ. तो ऐसा इट्स क्वाइट पॉसिबल कि आज आप सभी लोग जो आए हैं, आप सबको शायद ऑटिज्म के बारे में मालूमात हो, पर ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि आप में से कुछ लोग हैं जो शायद इस जर्नी में शुरुआत कर रहे हों, या ऐसे कुछ लोग हों जो शायद ऑटिज्म के बारे में कुछ चीजें जानते हो, बट शायद फिर से थोड़ा बहुत और जानकारी लें. सो इसलिए मैं शुरुआत करूंगी जस्ट अ लिटिल बिट अबाउट ऑटिज्म, about what is autism and what is the autism spectrum disorder. So when we are talking about autism, जब हम autism के बारे में बात करते हैं तो हम उन conditions के बारे में, उस condition के बारे में बात करते हैं जिनमें बच्चों या बड़ों को लोगों के साथ मेल जोल करने में या सोशलाइज करने में, लोगों से कम्युनिकेट करने में, उनके बर्तावों में, दूसरों के जब हम दूसरों के बर्ताव, जो न्यूरोटिपिकल लोग होते हैं उनके बर्ताव और उनके बोलने के तरीके, उनके लोगों के साथ मेलजोल करने के तरीकों को देखें, तो उससे थोड़ा हमें अलग या दिक्कतें दिख सकती हैं. So there can be differences or difficulties in socialization, communication, and unusual behaviors. And from the time I started practicing, when it was said that, you know, autism impacts 1 in 150 people, we now know that it's way more common. In fact, अगर हम USA के statistics देखते हैं, तो अभी उनके recent statistics हैं that 1 in every 36 children is getting diagnosed with autism. In countries like India, where we don't have very recent data, but even then, the data that we have, वो ये suggest करता है कम से कम 100 लोगों में से या 100 बच्चों में से एक बच्चे को ये diagnosis दी जा रही है, right? एक चीज है जो change नहीं हुई है कि boys में ये diagnosis girls की तुलना में ज्यादा होती है. So almost 4 boys are likely to get a diagnosis versus 1 girl. So it's more common in boys. जैसे हमने बोला कि autism is a condition in which there are difficulties or differences in how people communicate with others, right? And it's very, very, very important to understand that it's a developmental condition, which means it's there right from the beginning. And social communication जो होती है, वो बच्चे शुरुआत से करते हैं. तो पहले 3 महीनों में अगर आपको याद है अपने बच्चों के बारे में, या आप और किसी छोटे बच्चे को जानते हैं, तो फिर आपको शायद याद हो कि by the end of 3 months, first 3 months of a child's life, they've started to smile. They look at people, they start to smile, They enjoy, when other people look at them, coo at them. They enjoy that, somebody's doing something with them. And slowly they become more expressive with their faces and their bodies. By the end of 7 months, they've now started to smile back. Someone smiles at them, they smile back. और अगर उनके साथ कोई कोई आवाजें करता है तो वो आवाजें वापस करते हैं. They respond to sounds with sounds. They love social play. They love, they've started to enjoy if somebody pops up from somebody behind someone's back and they really laugh and they give you this big chortle. So उन्हें बड़ा मजा आता है. तो इसीलिए ये जरूरी है कि अगर हम किसी छोटे बच्चे के केयर गिवर हैं तो ये याद रखें कि अगर 6-7 महीने तक हम हमारे बच्चे में ऐसे बड़े स्माइल्स नहीं देख पा रहे हैं तो दैट्स समथिंग दैट वी वांट टू बी अलर्ट अबाउट. और अगर हम ये जो बैक एंड फोर्थ जो होता है जिसको हम रेसिप्रोसिटी बोलते हैं ऑफ साउंड्स, व्हेन यू आर मेकिंग साउंड्स दे मेक सम साउंड्स बैक, व्हेन वी स्माइल एट देम दे स्माइल बैक, or other, we look at them like this and they look back at us. So if there is this back and forth is not there by even 9 months or after that, then it's something that we want to be alert about. Now going ahead, by the age of 1, children have started to do simple gestures. They'll probably do give, they'll blow a kiss, they'll wave bye-bye, and they'll do a little bit of imitating actions in their play. And when somebody says no to them, they will listen. They will kind of figure out, okay, somebody said no, I need to stop. So once again, if there is a child, by the time a child who's 1 year old, this back and forth is not happening, and they have not started doing some of the typical things like pointing to what they want, or bringing something to show you, or waving bye-bye. And very importantly, when you call them by their name and they are not looking back at you, not answering back, and there's no babbling, none of the bab, 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 mam, mam, mam coming up, then once again, that's something that parents and care providers like physicians and doctors definitely have to be on the alert. जब तक ये बच्चा 1.5 साल का हो जाता है, 18 महीने का हो जाता है, तब तक टिपिकली बच्चे लोग थोड़ा सिंपल प्रिटेंड प्ले करना शुरू कर देते हैं. They'll try, put the little doll to sleep. They may pretend to drink a cup of tea, or they may pretend to kind of come and poke you like the doctor poked them, or pretend to see you, examine you. They start pointing to show you interesting objects. They show ye dekho, wo dekho. And they, by this time, they've started to use quite a few single words, or words that may sound like words in their language. So it might be a bikki for biscuit, or a dudu for milk. But they do have specific things that they use for words. And so therefore, if there is a child who once again doesn't have any single words by the age of 1.5 years, once again, it's time to be alert. Okay, why is this happening? It's important to be alert if there is no pretend play by 1.5 years. So once again, these are some early indicators that as caregivers and care providers, we want to be alert. Because I think today's session is not just about for those who are already in this journey, but it is possible that this might reach out to other parents and other caregivers who may have some worries. So that's the reason why we're also putting some of these signs down here. By the end of 2 years, जब तक बच्चे 2 साल के हो जाते हैं, वो एटलीस्ट 2 शब्दों को जोड़ना शुरू करते हैं. तो गुम्मी चलो, दूध दो, पापा पापा नहीं. So simple 2-word phrases children start to use by end of 2 years. Sometimes kids may even use longer phrases. They are definitely following simple instructions. Give me this, put this, give that to daddy, bring this, ये डाल दो, उधर डाल दो. ये बच्चे लोग बहुत अच्छे से और easily 2 साल तक कर लेते हैं. उन्हें दूसरे बच्चों में, children में भी बहुत interested, they're very interested. And they're of course pointing to objects and pictures when named. ये दिखा दो, वो बता दो, they're very interested. So once again, if by 2 years we are seeing that our children, or there's a child who we know जो थोड़े बहुत कुछ बोल लेता है, but at least शब्दों को join नहीं कर रहा है meaningfully, और उसको दूसरे बच्चों उसमें कुछ खास दिलचस्पी नहीं है. So once again, it's cause for concern. It's cause to be worried. To say, okay, you know what? Let's just get an opinion. And at any point, if you notice that here's a child who had speech or had social skills, was interested in other people, but has lost them, which we also call as aggression, then that's something that needs to be, no waiting, just go and get opinion. If any of you want to learn more about this, so the CDC site of USA, it's a lovely site. It gives the signs age by age. Feel free to go there. It's cdc.gov. So it's called Learn the Signs and Act Early. Now, you know what? Parents intuitively know because they're seeing other children. वो दूसरे बच्चों को देख रहे हैं, दूसरे बच्चे क्या करते हैं, कब चल रहे हैं, कब हंस रहे हैं, कब दूसरों की कितनी दिलचस्पी ले रहे हैं, what are they doing with other children? And parents have a sense of how their own child is doing. So it's not surprising that parents do pick up some of these early difficulties quite early, in fact, way before the age of 3. But till now, very often, for different reasons, be it somebody in the family, be it a caring neighbor, be it somebody, maybe, sometimes even physicians who may not be very aware, they've been told that, no, don't worry, this is nothing, just wait and sit out and this child will speak. And that way, the age of diagnosis often gets delayed. However, we do know that a diagnosis of autism can be reliably made by the age of 2 years. And so our call to parents is trust your instincts as a parent and find someone जो आपकी बात सुनने के लिए ready हो, जो आपकी चिंताओं को ध्यान देने के लिए ready हो. So go and find that person. So how is autism diagnosed? As many of you know that there is no one medical test. So till now, there is no one MRI, there is no blood test, there is no X-ray that will tell you for sure that this is autism. But then how do we know that this is autism? We know because your parents, teachers are often the first to notice that, ye bacche ka communication, uske behaviors, ya uska logo mein dilchaspi, this looks different, and you all seek out help. And then the physician, which can be a developmental pediatrician, a neurologist, or a psychiatrist, will then base the diagnosis on their behaviors and sometimes educational and psychological testing. However, please stay connected with the physician. It may be a developmental pediatrician or a psychiatrist or whoever, because just getting a diagnosis is just the start. And while they may, I personally have met many families who've gotten a diagnosis and have been, going to therapies, but have then, not been able to go back to the physician. And why is that important? Because there may be other medical things that need to be taken care of. And every child develops, and it's important that somebody is following the child through their years in terms of their development and their health care. And same way, supporting you as caregivers, helping you with information, helping you with decision making at different points. Now, some of the medical concerns, there are about 30% of children, in the autism spectrum may have seizures. Constipation, diarrhea, these could be concerns. Sleep is an issue with many, not getting enough sleep, going to sleep late, waking up early. These are also not uncommon. Having sensitivity to certain tastes, खाने में दिक्कतें, नहीं खाना, बहुत picky eater होना, ये चीजें भी बहुत common है. और tics या involuntary movements लगभग 10 में से एक बच्चे को हो सकती. It's also very important to remember, very, very important to remember that your child is unique, right? Like every child is unique. And autism also impacts every child uniquely and differently. तो हर दो इंसान, हर दो बच्चा जो ऑटिस्टिक है अलग है. दो इंसान अलग, और हर स्टेज में अलग अलग तरीके से वो इम्पैक्ट करता है. तो बहुत बार अगर 2 साल में एक बच्चा बात नहीं कर रहा है या उसे लाउड साउंड से बहुत ज्यादा अवर्शन है, that doesn't mean that this is what this child will look like at 12, right? So autism impacts children differently at different ages. And across the years, some of the difficulties may change, but often some of the difficulties are still in the 3 areas of language and communication, socialization, and behaviors. So like I said, there might be some children, often one of the earliest things is children may speak late. But not all children speak late, especially level 1 autism. It's not uncommon to have children who have learned to speak on time or maybe even earlier than other kids. But use of language, in conversations may be difficult. Sometimes you may see that they may use language that they've heard in other places जो वो repeat कर रहे हैं. और कभी कभी अगर लोग कुछ चीजें हैं जो sarcastically बोल रहे हैं, या ऐसे कुछ चीजें जो मुहावरे हैं, जो थोड़ा abstract language है, वो शायद हमेशा एकदम से ना समझ में आए. प्ले, छोटे बच्चों में हम प्रिटेंड इमेजिनेटिव प्ले में अलग दिख सकता है कि शायद कुछ बच्चे ये इमेजिनेटिव प्ले करें ही ना. इनफैक्ट उन्हें शायद जो पैटर्न बेस्ड प्ले होता है, ब्लॉक्स लगाना, पजल्स लगाना, चीजों को सीक्वेंस में लगाना, ये चीजों में शायद ज्यादा दिलचस्पी हो. और कभी कभी खेल में जो रूल्स होते हैं, रूल बेस्ड गेम्स, लाइक इट मे बी वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू फिगर आउट, ओके छुपन छुपाई है, so one person has to hide, the others have to keep hiding till somebody finds out. So these kind of unspoken rules may feel very, very difficult to some of our kids. In the beginning, a child may struggle with something that you do like a peekaboo, and as they grow older, they may have difficulty in figuring out social interactions with other with peers of their age, right? And it may be difficult to understand, okay, how are other people thinking about me, or how other people feeling about me, and some of these things may make interaction, लोगों के साथ मेल जोल करने में इसमें दिक्कतें आ सकती है. Now all of us have our own unique behavioral patterns. हर एक का जरूरी नहीं है कि वो सिर्फ ऑटिज्म में ही है. However, जिन्हें ऑटिज्म की डायग्नोसिस मिलती है, या जो लोग ऑटिस्टिक है, बहुत बार ये देखा जाता है that for them प्रिडिक्टेबिलिटी बहुत जरूरी होती है. क्या होने वाला है, स्ट्रक्चर, इसके बाद ये होगा, दिस इज व्हाट यू नीड टू नो. दिस हैज अ बिग इंपॉर्टेंस फॉर देम, एंड समटाइम्स नॉट नोइंग व्हाट विल हैपन or changes that they couldn't predict can be very difficult, and they may experience it much more intensely. All of us are interested in different things. For many people in the spectrum, these interests may be narrow, they may be unique, and they may really, really like certain things a lot, right? So some people may think about it as a fixation or an obsession, and very often these special interests are very interesting. They may be something that people choose to do for the rest of their lives. There may be movements, so autistic people may have more stereotypical movements than others. Like I know that I rock a lot when I am doing something very intensely, and but what also happens is many people in the spectrum may have more evident self-stimulatory behaviors or such kind of repetitive movements. But once again, I do want to point out that not every person has all of it, right? And that's really important to understand, that this is a spectrum. Some have some don't have the other thing, some have more of one and less of the other. Sensory differences, once again, some may find loud sounds difficult, too much light, too many people. Others may need to feel sound, others may need to knock on things, others may need certain kind of textures. So once again, but sensory differences are often something that's बहुत बार दिखते हैं लोगों में. So at no point you will realize that I'm saying that it is a disease, right? It's a difference. It's a different way to say brain is wired. It's a different way of experiencing the world. And since it's not a disease, तो हमारा गोल किसी को क्योर करना नहीं है. तो ये हमारा गोल नहीं कि हमको किसी को अभी लेस ऑटिस्टिक बनाना है, या कि उसको हमको ऑटिज्म से निकाल लेना है. तो ये हमारा गोल नहीं है. What's our goal? As for everybody, कि हम कितना किसी को functionally independent बना सके, to maximize functional independence and to be able to focus on quality of life, right? And at the same time, to ensure कि उनके जो families हैं, they're able to get by with life better with less stress. So what's the cornerstone of treatment? So-called, it's therapies, it's interventions. And these are, of course, educational interventions होती हैं, developmental strategies होती हैं, behavioral strategies होती हैं. But what's really important is that early intervention. जल्द से जल्द शुरू करें, and nothing can beat early intervention. And what should intervention be like? So it's not that every child has to go to OT and physiotherapy and speech therapy and so on and so forth. Intervention has to be decided by what the child needs help with and what the family needs help with. So if there is a 14-year-old who is in the autism spectrum and is struggling with mental health issues, I'm not going to start and telling them, okay, you need to go to a speech therapist to work on communication. Maybe they need to start meeting a counselor who's going to work with mental health concerns. And so once again, one size does not fit all. What you hear that other parent talk about in terms of therapies may not be the best thing for your child, because your child is unique, and what works for one kid doesn't necessarily work for you, because their issues are different and so are yours. Their life is different, so is yours. And once again, there is no cure for autism. There are no medicines that treat autism. However, sometimes we spoke about the co-occurring issues. There might be someone may have seizures, somebody may have sleep issues, somebody may have a lot of hyperactivity, somebody may become very irritable. So there are medicines for those for sure. But let's remember that those medicines are not to treat autism. And CAM, or complementary alternative medications. So this is a big group of things, right? And this is something that you might every day. कुछ भी हो सकता है, वो camel का दूध हो सकती है, या वो stem cell हो सकता है, या वो hyperbaric oxygen हो सकता है. सालों से, I think, and very naturally, parents are driven, not just parents, all of us are driven by the need to find that one solution that will make lives better, right? And so every time, something seems to work with somebody, it's touted as a cure. That, okay, here's this magical new thing that will work. But new things keep coming up every single day. And our request to families, our request to care providers and to physicians is that do look for solid scientific evidence. कि ये जो नई चीज के बारे में बात की जा रही है, क्या हमारे पास 5 स्टोरी से ज्यादा कुछ है? क्या हमारे पास ये एविडेंस है साइंटिफिक ट्रायल से कि केवल ये चीज बच्चों के लिए उनके बिहेवियर्स को इम्प्रूव करता है, या उनकी कम्युनिकेशन को मदद करता है, या सोशलाइजेशन को मदद करता है? अगर हमारे पास ये साइंटिफिक एविडेंस है जो कि केवल 4 बच्चों की स्टोरी से नहीं हो रही है, then we are able to then think about it, okay, maybe there is some value in it. It's important to remember that since all children are different, all outcomes will also be different. Outcomes will be variable, right? Also because things change over time. But it's also important to remember that autism, for most cases, people stay autistic, right? So it's not that autism is something that you lose along the way. What changes is how functional you are and how well you optimize your skills and go on with everything in life that's important to you. So while there might be ongoing issues,
but
the other fact is that there are also ongoing victories and ongoing wonderful things that emerge in terms of, like we just heard about Nehal, about how she has got into a wonderful job. So there are lots and lots of stories of where good things emerge and positive outcomes come. So while, there might be some things that make us think, okay, better developmental progress, and cognitive skills, their social skills are better in early years, but that's not all. Because what's really important is to focus on how we support or help our child's participation in many different things, in sports, in games, in family functions, in activities. How can we help them participate? And that participation doesn't have to be in the same way that maybe another neurotypical kid is participating, because once again, the kids are different. And for that, it's important to identify what do our kids do well. And I'm not referring to do they paint well, or do they sing really well. Strengths can be in so many ways. So for many of the kids I work with, we notice that they really, really are so good with seeing things and remembering them, to be able to find patterns, to be able to see, to make sense of what's shown to them versus what's just said to them. And those are children's strengths. It's very important not to just see interests as fixations, but to see that as a way कि हम कैसे उनके interests को लें and how can we expand on it and use it as a medium to learn more and to grow their you know uh, motivation. And very importantly, as parents, we need to, हमें उनकी जरूरतों के लिए, उनके strengths के बारे में, उन्हें उनके लिए क्या मदद करता है, we have to be able to advocate, right? Which means हम उनके वकालत करनी है, हमको स्कूल में जाके बताना है, मेरे बच्चे के लिए ये चीजें काम आती हैं, या अगर उनके जरूरत पड़ा तो उनके वर्क प्लेसेस पे we have to be able to talk about and help them, help them throughout their young lives, be able to talk for what works for them and what doesn't. In fact, I don't know why I'm even saying this. We have Ved today who's going to advocate for what works for him. And finally, as caregivers, you matter. Your mental health matters. So seek support, find your community. And that's the whole purpose of why we have started the Family Resource Center, because families need spaces of their own. And there's need for their leisure skills, time to be able to talk to other people. So please feel free. This is a pitch for, staying connected. Family Resource Center से आज वहाँ से दो लोग हैं, definitely Smita है और रेवती है, and you can, stay on, connect with them. So there are lots of material that they've developed. There are videos that you can look at. So with that, I'm going to say thank you. And over back to you, Revati.
थैंक यू कोयली, थैंक यू सो मच. आपने बहुत सारे एस्पेक्ट्स के बारे में बात किया अबाउट ऑटिज्म इन अ वेरी शॉर्ट टाइम. थैंक यू सो मच फॉर दैट. एंड आपने यू एंडेड विद द स्ट्रेंग्थ्स, सो आई थिंक आई विल स्टार्ट ऑफ ओवर देयर. एंड मैं खुद पेरेंट हूँ. आई एम पेरेंट टू अ यंग मैन विद ऑटिज्म, so I think I'm also a little biased towards parents, so I will start with Seema. And I will start with a question for Seema. So Seema, क्या आप शेयर कर सकते हैं कि आपके बच्ची में आपने how were you able to identify your child's skills, what she was able to do and what were her strengths? So can you share a little bit about how you did that and what are your thoughts on that?
Actually, with Nehal, what we found that she was good with numbers and painting. She was okay with the paintings. Means we introduced painting to her. So initially, I thought she will go ahead in numbers and mathematics. Then, as the number sums changed to language sums, हमको लगा नहीं, this is not very easy for her. Although she was good in mathematics, so we tried everything with her, like swimming and skating. जो भी क्लास वाले हमें एनरोल कर लेते थे, हम सब जगह नेहल को भेजते थे, साथ में जाते थे या किसी के साथ भेजते थे. तो वी ट्राइड एवरीथिंग कि उसको किस चीज में मजा आ रहा है. एंड देन फाइनली मुझे लगा कि बाकी सब चीजों में तो मजा आ ही रहा है. Like swimming, she is fond of swimming, but painting is a thing जहाँ पे मैं उसको motivate कर सकती हूँ. So she started doing first on papers, and I am very bad in art. I am literally zero in art. So मैं उसको कुछ guide नहीं कर पा रही थी. But then this social media helped me a lot. So we started whatever she was making, we started putting on social media, and it was a time pass for her. But when people started liking, it became her passion. उसको लगा कि yes, the people are liking it. So she kept on improving, and by seeing YouTube videos. Then एक हमारे teacher भी थे जो कुछ दिनों के लिए आए 1-2 months के लिए, because it's not very easy to work with our kids. So खास तौर पे जो art teacher होते हैं, they are very systematic, and our kids are not. So finally YouTube videos helped. आप रिवाइंड करो, आगे करो, रिवाइंड करो, आगे करो, आपके हाथ में है. So with that, the stone painting became her passion. So now she completely enjoys that. So basically, it's not a seventh skill. It's only the skill which got developed because of her passion and because of the motivation which she received from everybody on the group. बहुत से लोगों को मैं जानती नहीं हूँ, बहुत से लोगों को जानती हूँ, but social media is such a good thing for our kids that it helped.
थैंक यू सीमा. आपकी बात सुन के मुझे खुद अपनी बात याद आ रही है. सो आवर सन आल्सो लर्नड अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स बाय वाचिंग यूट्यूब वीडियोस, एंड ही यूज्ड टू से द एडवांटेज इज दैट लाइक यू सेड, अपने पेस पे वो सीख के समझ के फिर से समझना चाहे तो गो बैक एंड या सो it just reminded me of that. And with that, I think it also एक question मेरे मन में आ रहा है for Ved, because we are talking about learning and processing of information and knowledge. So Ved, I would like to ask you a question now. Ved?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me? Hi,
Yes,
I'm here.
yes. So Ved, like we were talking about, the learning and so what do you think are different ways in which a child with autism can learn? Not just academics, anything that the child is interested in. What do you think, are different ways in which they can learn, they might prefer to learn?
Yes. So first off, I would like to thank you, Revati, for calling me here. I would like to thank Koyeli ma'am and Seema ma'am here for joining. And thank you to everybody here. And I will start off by saying that learning actually is something that's natural, actually, whether it's with someone with autism or not. It is something that you're just born with, because your mind like literally captures everything you see, everything you hear, you taste, you speak, everything. It just captures it all. So in like with regards to autism, whether it's academics or anywhere else, what are some ways an autistic person could learn is after hearing Seema ma'am and Koyeli ma'am speak, and with the long PPT. I would say that, of course, getting creative is one way of learning. Just get creative. And it's helped me personally a lot. That is why when Seema ma'am had also mentioned that her daughter does art and draws, paints and all, I used to be involved in art myself, and I used to find solace with painting, drawing. And whenever like you get someone, when any kid with autism or any disability, and when you get them in front of crayons and give them a piece of paper, obviously they'll make something, and they'll obviously use their imagination to make something. The one good thing about people is that we have our imaginations, and anything we create with our imaginations, we can perfectly stack it on a paper, irrespective of what people say.
Thank you, Ved. Thank you for sharing that. This was so good for us to know. I was just, thinking, Ved, if you would be comfortable in sharing that. How old were you when you, you are on the spectrum. So how old were you when you got to know or you understood that you are on the spectrum?
Well, it's a bit of a long story for me. That's what like my mom told me. But it all started when I was around 2. I was around 2 years old, and tabhi my dad used to be a ship captain. He used to be in the merchant navy. So he used to be on ship and he used to sail. And back then there was no proper house help, and it was just me and my mom at home. And my mom used to look after me like whatever you can think a mother would do to look after her child. She was that for me. And we were the only 2 people there, and my dad was away at ship. And then one day suddenly we go on ship with my dad, and I was sailing. I don't know for how long, but I was sailing for quite some time, and the other cabin crew and all the other captains on the ship, they approached my parents and they asked them, like उनको पूछा कि like आपके बेटे ऐसे अजीब हरकतें क्यों कर रहे हैं, like he's doing some really strange things. So obviously my parents and all, they were like कि बच्चा है ऐसा करता ही रहेगा, मतलब शरारती करता रहेगा, हर बच्चे में वो खूबी है. So saying like that in English, they said he's mischievous and all, so it's fine. But later when they started realizing that I am doing something that not all kids at age 2 or maybe age 5 would do, so they started like doing a lot of research, and later when they took me to a therapist, and मैं थाने में रहता था. I used to live in Thane before I moved to Chembur here in Mumbai. So I was a Thane boy for some time. So Thane में there was this one counselor my mom took me to, and she said that I was in the spectrum of autism, and तभी autism was like a new word in our dictionaries, honestly. So my mom also was like, what is autism now? I'm hearing this for the first time. And then she started doing a lot of research. She went online, read about it, and she saw like how is it, how to raise an autistic child. And she just did all her research. So yeah, I was around 2 when I got to know that I was diagnosed with autism.
Thank you, Ved. Thank you for sharing that. Uh, I think that leads me to a question for Koyeli, Dr. Koyeli. Since we are talking about how old was he when he sort of understood. So I was, just thinking about early intervention. So early intervention is important, but say, often we are waiting for therapy. There are long waiting sometimes. So when we are waiting, is there anything that parents can do at home while waiting for the therapy? Is there anything that you can suggest the parents do? Or yeah.
Sure. So I think some things, and so जब हम बात कर रहे हैं कि while parents are waiting, so I'm presuming it's mostly हम छोटे बच्चों के parents की बात कर रहे हैं जो एक diagnosis के बाद wait करने की बात कर रहे हैं. तो बहुत बार ऐसे होता है कि शायद आपको किसी ने बताया है, but अभी therapist नहीं मिला है, तो तब parents को हम घर पे क्या कर सकते हैं. तो यूजुअली क्योंकि पेरेंट्स इसलिए आते हैं कि बच्चा नहीं बोल रहा है या उतना नहीं बोल रहा है, तो कुछ चीजें हैं जैसे बच्चों के साथ देखो कि बच्चों को किसमें दिलचस्पी है. शायद उसको गाड़ी आगे पीछे करने में दिलचस्पी है, तो हम वो बच्चे के साथ बैठ के थोड़ा वो जो गाड़ी आगे पीछे कर रहा है तो वो फिर हम उसके साथ आवाजें कर सकते हैं, हम ब्रूम ब्रूम कर सकते हैं या गाड़ी रुक गई कर सकते हैं, उसके साथ नीचे बैठ के कर सकते हैं, उसके साथ बबल्स ब्लो कर सकते हैं. वो जो दिखा रहा है जिसमें दिलचस्पी ले रहा है हम उसको छोटे छोटे शब्दों में उसको वर्णन दे सकते हैं. वी कैन काइंड ऑफ give words to what the child is probably taking our hands towards, and we say, oh, water, oh, balloon. So doing some of those things, playing interactive games, going down on the floor, having fun, hiding behind the curtain, looking out, rolling a ball back and forth, doing little poems with actions. So basically getting down to your child's level, engaging them in a way that the child enjoys. So instead of just forcing them to do something, putting in a puzzle, putting in rings, look out for what is your child having fun in and trying to see if you can join them. So I think that's a good way to start.
Thank you, Koyeli. That was really useful. So coming back to Seema, हम लोग थेरेपी के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं. तो स्पीच थेरेपी होता है, कभी ऑक्यूपेशनल थेरेपी होता है, कभी हम स्पेशल एजुकेटर वी गो फॉर स्पेशल एजुकेटर सेशन. सो दे ऑल डू देयर बिट्स सेपरेटली. हर एक का अलग अलग होता है जो वो करते हैं. लेकिन हम एज अ पेरेंट, हाउ कैन वी ब्रिंग इट ऑल टुगेदर? हाउ डू वी ब्रिंग इट टुगेदर एंड सपोर्ट आवर चाइल्ड? अगर आप इसके बारे में कुछ बता सकते हैं तो.
एक्चुअली जो भी थेरेपीज हम अपने बच्चे को कराते हैं, सो इट्स नॉट ओनली थेरेपी फॉर द किड्स, इट्स अ लर्निंग सेशन फॉर द पेरेंट्स ऑल्सो, क्योंकि पेरेंट्स 24 घंटे उनके साथ में है, एंड थेरेपिस्ट एक अकेला होता है, एंड पेरेंट्स का इट्स अ फुल ग्रुप, लाइक इट कैन बी दादा दादी, नाना नानी, योर सर्वेंट्स, हस्बैंड वाइफ, एवरीबडी, सिबलिंग्स। तो आप उस जो भी थेरेपिस्ट करा रहा है उसका अगर हम होम प्रोग्राम बनाए, समटाइम्स थेरेपिस्ट गिव, समटाइम्स यू ओनली नीड टू ऑब्जर्व कि वो क्या करा रहे हैं, एंड उस चीज को हमें घर पे करना है। हमको ऐसा नहीं सोचना है कि 1 घंटे हमने थेरेपी करा लिया विच वॉज वेरी कॉस्टली, इज डन, नो। वो थेरेपी में आपने क्या सीखा, और उस थेरेपी को आप घर में आके 24 घंटे कैसे कर रहे हो। इवन जब आप मार्केट जाते हो, आप मूवी देखने जाते हो, आप बच्चे को साथ में लेके जाओ। इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट, शुरू में तो बहुत मुश्किल लगता है, आपका बच्चा भागेगा, चीखेगा, चिल्लाएगा, बट वहां आप नहीं लेके जाओगे तो वो चीजें वो सीखेगा नहीं। सो बेसिकली जब हम बच्चे को बाहर ले जाते हैं तो हम भी सीखते हैं कि हाउ टू हैंडल द चाइल्ड, और बच्चा भी बहुत सी चीजें बाहर से सीखता है। सो आपको सारी थेरेपीज करानी है, उससे सीखना है, जो भी आपके बच्चा को हेल्प कर रही है। इफ ओटी इज हेल्पिंग, आप कंटिन्यू करिए और घर पे भी कराइए। ऐसा जरूरी नहीं है कि पड़ोसी 10 थेरेपी करा रहा है तो मैं भी 10 थेरेपी कराऊं। जो भी आपके बच्चे को हेल्प कर रहा है वो थेरेपी कराएं, एंड होम प्रोग्राम को बहुत रिगरसली फॉलो करें। एंड देयर इज वन मोर स्मॉल एडवाइस, जो भी होम प्रोग्राम है वो पूरा परिवार मिलके करे। इट शुड बी अ फैमिली अफेयर, इट शुड नॉट बी ओनली मदर अफेयर। नहीं तो होता क्या है कि बच्चा थोड़े दिन में मम्मा से चिढ़ने लगता है कि शी इज आफ्टर मी ऑल द टाइम। तो उस चीज को थोड़ा बांट के सब मिलके करेंगे, सो इट विल हेल्प चाइल्ड डेफिनेटली। ऑल द थेरेपीज आर इम्पोर्टेंट, बट होम प्रोग्राम्स आर मोर इम्पोर्टेंट देन एनी थेरेपी।
थैंक यू सीमा, थैंक यू। आपने एक बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट चीज लाई, जो यू नो, इट्स नॉट जस्ट द मदर फादर बट इट्स द फैमिली दैट इज इन्वॉल्व्ड इन सपोर्टिंग द चाइल्ड, which makes a lot of which makes it much more effective and powerful also for the child and for the family. So thank you so much for sharing that. Here I will shift gears a little bit and go back to Ved. Yeah, Ved. And
Yes.
talk about a different aspect. Ved, you know, like you said, you like to be called a person who is on the spectrum. If what I wanted to ask you is, if you were to talk about people on the spectrum, people with autism, how would you describe? What would you say about them? Uh, if you can share that with us.
Sure thing. So, like how Koyeli ma'am has explained like autism in like a beautiful way. For me personally, being an advocate myself, I think I speak for all autistic people out there in the world. We are just different. You know, I mean, autism in like our Indian society, it's always looked down upon, or people always like we live in a society where we look at mental health or we look at mental issues as a myth or as like to sugarcoat something, whereas that's not the case at times. Like you need to know like autism technically is something that's definitely real, and it affects you both in your developmental status and your mental status as well. So I would like to say that people with autism mainly are just normal like human beings like you and me. Like literally, they eat the same. They'll eat the same food as you. They'll maybe drive the same car as you, or probably they live in the same planet as you. They also have a family like you. They have friends like you. So people with autism also, well, how do I look upon it is that we have our own ways to, keep up with situations like how Holy Ma'am said. She said that everybody is unique in their own ways. And we need to look at it as a way to treat them differently and not like, shun them or shoo them aside or just look at it in a bad way saying that you're autistic. No, you shouldn't be here. That negative sense is what makes an autistic person feel like, why am I here? Why was I diagnosed with autism? And at a point of time, I used to feel like that at some stage when people used to think that autism is maybe a disease like Koyeli ma'am used to say. Even I used to think of it as a disease or something to get rid of. But later when I started looking at it, later when I dug my roots deeper, I actually saw it as something to push me forward. I actually use, like, even when I say that I'm on the spectrum, I literally identify myself as an ordinary human being. I don't call myself an autistic being. I just call myself as a human being here.
More power to you, Ved. What you shared is so important. It's so important. Thank you for sharing that. And just to continuing on the same note, you did talk about you have advocated for yourself, in different spaces. So, is there any story that you can share about how you advocated for yourself and your needs? Any instant that you would like to share any story?
Of course, yes. I would like to share this one like story. Is that back in school, this was during my 10th grade. I was about 14 or 15 back. So I like used to always have be handheld by my parents. Like, of course, my parents always supported me and always were there for me. So I personally saw it as a way that I needed to, like, I needed my parents and there was nothing I could do without them. But later, how did I advocate for myself is that I slowly just started working on myself more. And this is important whether you are a part of the spectrum or not, is that even with the environment will be filled with people everywhere. You'll find both good and bad people everywhere. But the most important thing is how you treat yourself. Even when you have family, friends to support you, that is one thing. But the main priority in the end of the day is you. So you need to be your own best friend. And how did I overcome this is that I also had like a lot of bad habits, like not bad habits, but I had a lot of strange, awkward habits, like, hand rolling or hand moving or just shaking my legs when I'm agitated and something. And people would look at it like, bro, what are you doing? Well, slowly I just started, calming myself down. And soon I just also started practicing the art of being my own best friend, honestly, because I do talk to myself out loud. I talk to myself out loud, and people normally don't like it, but I do that as a way to, like, just, tell myself that I'm not alone, that I have me, and no matter whatever happens in life, I tell myself that, wait, you got this, you can do it. And I lastly would like to say that is today, like to where I am today, it's because of my parents, my family, and a few of my supportive friends, and of course, Umid here. Umid also has played a big role in my journey of advocacy. If it weren't for them, I wouldn't, like, be here. And I really have a lot of people to thank on the way alongside putting in my efforts. So yeah.
Ved, thank you for being here for us today and sharing all these important and powerful aspects. So thank you for being here. We should be thanking you for that. And on the same note of advocacy, I'll now move to Seema. Seema, can you share with us कि आपने अपनी बच्ची के लिए as a parent, so like Ved has been advocating so much for himself. When our children are younger, parents also have to advocate in different spaces for our kids. So can you share any incident or story or how you have advocated for your child? Yeah.
With us, the first stage was acceptance. We took our own good time in accepting that our child is different. क्योंकि उस समय autism का बिल्कुल knowledge नहीं था. And after that, जब वो acceptance आया, तो ऐसा लगा कि कोई rock हमारे ऊपर से हट गया है. Then we thought कि जब हमें उसके बारे में मालूम नहीं है, तो दूसरों को भी नहीं मालूम है. So with that mindset, we started with our family. First, we briefed everybody in the family कि why Nehal is different and how come this is not genetic and how come there is no role of me or Anupam in her autism. So that was something very big जो मुझे family को the start समझाना पड़ा. After that, because शुरुआत में ये होता है कि कहाँ से आया, कहा था, किसको था पहले, तुम्हारा किसी को था क्या? सो सबसे पहले वो चैप्टर क्लोज किया. देन वी मूव टू स्कूल. द स्कूल एडमिशन वाज वेरी डिफिकल्ट, but we were lucky enough to got admission, and there we told from the initial days, like from the first day we told teachers ki she is different. And jab uska diagnosis us samay tak, when like preschool mein diagnosis was not there, so she suffered a lot in preschool. But jab wo KG mein uska admission hua in a proper school, mainstream school, there we disclosed, and there we found कि अगर हम स्कूल के साथ ओपन रहे, then it will be easier for school also to keep our child. So she was the first child with autism in her mainstream school. The school supported her, and after 10th she went to other school. There also we took session of the students also to teach them what autism is, because होता क्या है कि bullying start हो जाती है if kids are not knowing what autism is. So we took sessions at both her primary school and then her 11th 12th school also. So we were lucky कि schools अच्छे थे, and after Nehal the school became inclusive. Although for both the schools, she was the GD Somani and Gopi Billa, she was the first kid on the spectrum. But after that, after her, even on their website, they started writing कि it's an inclusive school. So हम teachers के साथ में every step communicate करते रहे कि हाँ वो different है, and अगर आपको वो कुछ फीडबैक है जो आप हमें देना चाहते हैं, तो we will not mind, it will help us. It's not that कि if you are giving us some negative feedback, तो हम आपसे लड़ने आएंगे या हम आपका उस तरीके का फीडबैक देंगे. And the advocacy के लिए हमने we established channel with the principal. So what we did, every year we used to write a thank you letter to the principal in a very nicely drafted language, dil se likh ke, and batate the ki how school helped in this 1 year, how the teacher helped, and jo teacher ne kiya hota tha specifically hum unka naam mention karte the कि इन टीचर ने इस तरीके से नेहल को हेल्प किया. एंड होता क्या है, प्रिंसिपल्स टेक मीटिंग्स ऑफ देयर टीचर्स, एंड वो जब उस तरीके की चीजें एक टीचर के लिए पढ़ते हैं तो आपको सेम काइंड ऑफ सपोर्ट नेक्स्ट ईयर भी मिलता है. सो विद दैट काइंड ऑफ ओपन चैनल her advocacy went on, and in the St. Xavier's College, that was a dream come true college for our kids. So there also her percentage was not that much high for the IT admission. We went with her and met principal. We explained to him everything about autism. He was also not knowing much about it. But then they gave admission to Nehal, and she did well. She got good support. So what I found कि जहाँ भी हमने disclose करके आगे बढ़े, we got acceptance. और हम बहुत ज्यादा एक मराठी में वर्ड होता है कि वी कांट बी वेरी एड़ा विद देम, वी हैव टू बी हम्बल. हमको बहुत खराब लोग भी मिलेंगे, सो वी हैव टू जस्ट लीव देम. मतलब हम अगर लड़ने बैठ गए तो हमारी एनर्जी खराब जाती. जस्ट लुक फॉर गुड पीपल हु आर गोइंग टू सपोर्ट योर किड, यू आर गोइंग टू सपोर्ट योर कॉज. क्योंकि जब हम लड़ते हैं ना, आपके पीछे वो आपके बच्चे को क्या बोल रहे हैं, क्या ट्रीट कर रहे हैं, क्या स्प्रेड कर रहे हैं, यू डोंट नो. तो जस्ट इग्नोर एंड लीव दोज पीपल हु आर नॉट गुड विद योर चाइल्ड. ठीक है, दुनिया को सुधारने की कोशिश मत करो. जस्ट पिक द गुड पीपल एंड मूव अहेड विद देम. So this is like that college hua, and then for the job FFA helped us. Because of FFA we got that advertisement of Ernst and Young, and that opening was for NCOE people. They were very मतलब उनका पूरा नॉलेज बेस है ऑटिज्म के बारे में, एंड नेहल इज वेरी कंफर्टेबल विद देम एट द ऑफिस, and they know how to work because they have a center of excellence for them. So basically advocacy never stops, and for her skills also हमको मार्केटिंग करना होता है, वो खुद की मार्केटिंग नहीं कर पाएंगे. सो उसका जो भी वो बनाती है हम उसको भले वो 300 रुपीज में वो पीस बिक रहा होगा, बट वो जो हैप्पीनेस लाता है वो मुझे मेरी सैलरी से बड़ा हैप्पीनेस लाता है. So like that uh, basically आप दिल से करते चलते हैं, so it helps.
Thank you, Seema. We've been, I think, Ved also talked a little bit about, being different. आपने भी share किया कि different है हमारे बच्चे. But मैं वेद से पूछना चाहूंगी. I would like to ask Ved that are there times when you wished that things around you were different? You know?
Well, yeah, that is actually a little like a tough question to ask me. But yes, I mean, personally, if like how I look at it, there have been indeed times like I have wished that things were different, and I just wish I was just like everyone else. I just wish that the world could be even a better place, a happy place with, all that sunshines, rainbows, and all. But nope. And I always looked at the mirror and I always thought, ki, where am I going wrong? How am I screwing things up? I would always ask myself that, or what action of mine did people not like? Is it me or is it people? So this is one thing I would always like ask myself. And another thing was that is where that I had, even though I had wished that what if my life was like this if I didn't have autism? Would people treat me the same as they are treating me now, or would people be more worse than what they actually have been treating me? So वो डर तो था ही कि लाइक कि ये सब होगा कि नहीं होगा, सब ऐसे अच्छे से चल जाएगा कि नहीं. एंड और दूसरी बात तो ये है, तीसरी बात ये है कि जब भी whenever I also wished कि चीजें अलग हो, और I wished like people would treat me better, it would never actually happen because like how मैंने पहले भी mention किया था, like you have to work on yourself, and even when the whole world goes against you, my biggest thing is you still have to like have yourself. As long as अपना खुद का जो क्या बोलते हैं confidence, खुद का जो self confidence है, अगर वो तुम्हारा एकदम तगड़ा है, ताकतवर है, even if that's strong, मैं बोल रहा हूँ भगवान भी खुद कोई नहीं आके, nobody can like literally ruin you. That's the mindset you should go with. And there have been times where I haven't wished like things would have changed because personally मैं जो खुद बोलता हूँ is that today where I am, if it weren't for those events, I wouldn't be here. And me being with autism, it makes me also who I am. Today here I am talking to y'all, telling y'all about my experience. If there was no autism, there would be no advocacy. That is why I personally am grateful to the people around me and for me to be the way I am. So yeah.
Thank you, Ved. And all the comments in chat, you must just look at them and it says all. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing your journey, your experiences, your thoughts. Thank you so much. I think I again I'll shift a little bit. I'll shift gears a little bit and go back to Dr. Koyeli and talk a little bit about the medical
Honestly,
aspects.
I feel that we should just keep listening to Seema and Ved. I mean, I would be very happy to just do that today. But yes, please, sure. Yeah.
Uh, so we've talked about being the children being different and having basically uh, the stimulus from the surrounding that makes the child maybe uncomfortable, because of which there is some behavior. So there are these differences in behavior that both Ved and Seema talked about. So this is a question that I think all of us parents have. कि child के behavior पे हम कितना काम करें? How much should we work on the child's behavior? Is it sometimes okay to let your child just be? So this is a question I think which is always there on as parents on our mind. So if you can share your thoughts on that.
Um, there's so many things that Seema and Ved have already said. I'm just going to add that also, I think to some extent, it's also parents' journey, right? I think parents also, in different phases of their own journey, um, have a different understanding of behaviors, right? So it's quite possible how Seema thinks today is probably very different from how Seema thought when Nehal was 2 years old and 3 years old. Because when you're starting this journey, there is so much pressure for your child to look just like any other child. So then the thought is, what can I do to make my child talk like another child? Make him or her stop spinning, stop stimming, sit in one place, smile back, not look away. So how can I change these behaviors? Basically, the root thought or thinking is, how can I make my child not be autistic, right? And there are two things. One is, like I said, it's a journey that all parents will go through on their own, being able to see their child for what they are, the joy they bring, right, and what strengths they bring. And at the same time, ये देखना कि okay, हम जब behaviors के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं ना, तो behaviors are always so many things, right? If there is a child who's stimming, मैं वो stimming रोकने के लिए क्या करूं, पर उसकी जगह पे ये सोचे कि स्टिमिंग हो क्यों रहा है. जैसे हमको वेद ने बोला, बहुत बार मैं ये करता हूँ क्योंकि मुझे खुद को रेगुलेट करना है. अब क्यों उसको खुद को रेगुलेट करने की जरूरत पड़ रही है? क्योंकि शायद वो तब एक बहुत क्राउडेड पार्टी में है, या फिर वो एक मॉल में गया है जहां पे बाकी बच्चों को बड़ा मजा आ रहा है. आई एम जस्ट hypothetically, I don't mean that I'm talking about Ved, but I'm talking about another child here, maybe, where it is just too much, too overwhelming for him. Or maybe because Dadaji or Nanaji came home with some chocolates which I really like, and I'm so happy, and I want to show how happy I am, right? And I can see, I think, a grandfather on the screen who's laughing because I think he remembers his times from when he was probably doing that. So yes, right? So our children may showing their emotions, their thoughts, their fears through their behaviors. It's our job to be able to ascribe meaning to those behaviors. They are a form of communication. What are children trying to show us through their behaviors? Why, if some of those behaviors appear disturbing or difficult, then what skill do they not have? Are they hitting somebody because they are dysregulated, they can't bear it? What needs to change in the environment? What needs to change in what's happening around other people, right? इसीलिए केवल जब भी मैं किसी फैमिली से मिलती हूँ, मैं ये चीज को लेके काफी देर तक बात करती हूँ कि हमको हर सोल्यूशन हमारे बच्चे के अंदर नहीं ढूंढना है. What do we change in the environment around the child? And how do we change things around us? I think so much of that answer lies there.
Yeah, it resonates so much with some of our own experiences as families. Yeah. Before I move on to Seema with another question, I would like to, ask you one more question. There is research तो होता ही रहता है medical fields में. So, is there any way that families of children with autism can they help in autism research? Is there any way, or is it happening? We can't hear you.
Are you asking me?
Yeah, Koyeli.
Okay, sorry. I don't know why I thought you asked Seema.
No.
Well, you know what? Autism को लेके research तो सालों से चल रही है. But what's also true is that I think not every child who's autistic is a Nehal or a Ved, right? Which means हर autistic बच्चा इतने क्लियरली अपनी चीजों को बता नहीं पाता है, अपने फीलिंग्स के बारे में हमें उनकी इनर वर्ल्ड के बारे में ये जानकारी नहीं दे पाता है। तो हमारे ऐसे बहुत बच्चे हैं जो बात नहीं कर पाते हैं, अगर कर भी रहे तो बहुत लिमिटेड या मिनिमली स्पीकिंग है। तो फिर बहुत बार रिसर्च उन बच्चों को लेके नहीं हो पाती है, because they are not able to participate in that research, right? To be able to participate in some of these advocacy forums. So इसीलिए हम उन बच्चों के बारे में जानकारी लेने के लिए फिर हम पेरेंट्स के साथ काम करते हैं, उनसे सोचते हैं, उनको पूछते हैं. So yes, being participants in research of course, but और एक चीज जो अभी बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है, जिसकी समझ हम जैसे लोगों को हो रही है, जो प्रोफेशनल्स हैं, जो हम रिसर्च भी करते हैं, जिन्हें दिलचस्पी है, वो ये है कि जो पेरेंट एडवोकेट्स है और सेल्फ एडवोकेट्स है, द टाइम इज गॉन जब वो सिर्फ पार्टिसिपेट करेंगे. Now it is about collaborative research. It is about Ved telling us and Nehal telling us, you know what, we need to know or we need to get answers about these questions. Or people like Revati, you and Seema and other parents जो हमें पूछ रहे हैं, to be able to tell researchers that we would like answers to these questions, right? Or maybe even for us to do it collaboratively. Like one thing that we are trying to do at Meet right now is जब हम कोई research project के बारे में सोचते हैं, तो हम collaboratively questions decide करते हैं. आप family FRC के पास आते हैं, क्या ये questions आपको ठीक लग रहे हैं? Do they sound all right? Do you think something needs to be different? Are they asking the right kind of things? So not just to be participants in research, but to be collaborators, because nobody knows autism better than y'all, the children, the adults, and the caregivers. So lots of role to play, and in different ways.
Thanks for that. I am really taking back that collaborative research back with me. That is so powerful. And I'm also looking at the time. We're almost at the end, and we do want people to have a chance to ask questions. I'll just take, one last question for, I'll ask this to Seema, because this is something that as parents, I think as working parents, that is something that we are always sort of grappling with. So I know Seema is working. So I just wanted to ask सीमा कि आपके लिए कैसा रहा कि आप वर्किंग मदर हैं और देखभाल भी कर रहे थे, तो how was it for you? Can you just share a little bit of your journey on that?
Actually, with me, because I'm in government sector, so it was like balance was easier. होता क्या है कि I thought of leaving the job, पर मुझे लगा कि then if काफी पढ़ाई की है, काफी तो उसके लिए लगा कि अगर मैं अपना करियर सेक्रीफाइस करके बच्ची के ऊपर कंसंट्रेट करूंगी, तो मैं उसको टारगेट बना लूंगी, एंड देन मेरा वो टारगेट अचीव नहीं होगा तो मैं फ्रस्ट्रेट होंगी और बच्ची प्रेशराइज्ड होगी. एंड जब भी मेरा हबी घर आएगा, ही विल आस्क कि टारगेट पूरा की हुआ कि नहीं हुआ, बिकॉज यू लेफ्ट द जॉब फॉर दिस वर्क ओनली. तो वो सिर्फ मेरा काम हो जाएगा. तो इस तरह. और दूसरा, आप भी इंसान है, आपको भी डाइवर्शन चाहिए. जब भी मैं ऑफिस आती हूँ, आने जाने के रास्ते में आई कैन प्लान स्ट्रेटेजी विच आई कैन इम्प्लीमेंट व्हेन आई एम एट होम विद हर. क्योंकि अगर मैं उसके साथ में रहूंगी पूरे समय और उसके ऊपर वर्क करती रहूंगी, आई विल नॉट गेट टाइम फॉर द स्ट्रेटेजीज. एंड बर्न आउट्स होते हैं. सिर्फ मम्मी को बर्न आउट नहीं होता है, चाइल्ड को भी आपसे बर्न आउट होता है. वो आपसे फेडअप हो जाता है आपका चेहरा देख देख के. सो विद मी इट वर्क, क्योंकि लकीली वर्किंग आवर्स मेरे बिल्कुल डिफाइंड थे. तो इट वर्क. सो मुझे लगता है कि बेसिकली डिपेंड्स ऑन कि किस तरीके से आप किस तरीके का जॉब है, एंड इट्स मोर ऑफ पर्सनल चॉइस. बट अगर आप जॉब नहीं भी कर रहे हैं, आप घर पे थेरेपी बच्चे के साथ काम कर रहे हैं, देन डोंट मेक इट एज अ टारगेट. ये प्रोग्रेस एक दिन ऊपर जाती है, एक दिन नीचे जाती है, एंड एटलीस्ट फादर्स और घर के दूसरे लोग वो मदर का टारगेट सेट नहीं करना चाहिए. कि तुमने आज क्या किया, तुमने तो कुछ नहीं कर पाई, एक वीक में तुम्हारा आउटपुट क्या है। नो, दैट इज वेरी स्ट्रेसफुल, बच्चे की प्रोग्रेस नीचे जाती है। मदर फादर और घर की जो एनर्जी होती है, अगर आपका बच्चा डिफरेंटली एबल्ड है तो वो बाकी न्यूरोटिपिकल बच्चे से ज्यादा सेंस करता है, क्योंकि उसको वही एनर्जी आगे ले जाती है। सो जो भी आपको सूट करता है, विद मी मेरा जॉब के साथ मुझे सूट किया क्योंकि वो मुझे रिलैक्स रख रहा था। बट ये है कि आप अपनी एनर्जी पॉजिटिव रखिए, देन बच्चे की प्रोग्रेस मिलेगी।
थैंक यू सीमा, आपने इतनी वैल्यूबल बात की कि जो आपको सूट करे वो आप कीजिए, पर इम्पोर्टेंट चीज ये है कि अपना भी ख्याल रखना जरूरी है उसमें।
बहुत
एंड आई रियली विश कि ऐसा वेबिनार होता जब a few years ago when my son was much younger and I would have been able to follow all this. So it was so nice to hear you आप share कर रहे थे तो. Thank you so much. So I think with this we come to the end of the questions and the panel discussion.
Revati,
Now
sorry,
we
guys.
open.
Sorry, there were some questions in the chat, so that was there. So do you want to open it up and then take it? Is
Yeah,
it?
we will. Yeah. Yeah. We'll open up the questions. अभी आप कोई पूछना चाहते हैं तो questions पूछ सकते हैं. We will look at the chat questions also. Yeah, there are a lots of lovely comments on the chat. उसमें actually we are missing out the questions because there are lovely comments. Okay.
Revati, if you want, I can.
Yeah, can you please? Yeah, I think there's. Yeah.
Okay. So the first question is, I think, from Sneha. She said that if one child is on the spectrum, is it advisable to go for second child? Because generally people say the chances is high if the first one is autistic. So I guess this can be directed to Dr. Koyeli.
Thanks, Vita. So, yes, it is true that if the first child is autistic, then the chances of having another child who is autistic is higher. And it's about maybe, so there's a 10 to 15% higher chance. But then there is a significantly greater chance of having a child who is not autistic. Now, that being said, once you see somebody like Ved, wouldn't you want to have somebody like him in your life and around you, right? So, I think, Seema and parents and so many of you have seen so much joy with your children. So I think to be able to acknowledge that. But if I look at it medically and looking at concerns, because I do know that this is parents want to be able, chances of having another child who's autistic ज़्यादा है. हमारे पास अभी तक फूल प्रूफ कोई मेथड्स नहीं है जानने के लिए ड्यूरिंग प्रेगनेंसी को किसी को ऑटिज्म है या नहीं है. हालांकि हमें मालूम है इट इज अ जेनेटिक कंडीशन एंड दैट जीन्स आर इन्वॉल्व्ड, बट it's not something that can be detected and diagnosed early. So unless and until it's a very specific syndrome या genetic condition जिसमें autism या developmental delays के chances ज़्यादा होते हैं. So one way to get that answer is probably to undergo detailed genetic tests जो आपके neurologist या developmental pediatrician या आपके geneticist मदद कर सकते हैं. But don't let that stop you from discovering the joy of having another child if that is something that you want to do. It's very important to examine the reasons for why you want to have another child, and not that you want a caregiver for your child with autism. To know why you want to have another child in your life, I think that's a very important discussion that you want to have with as parents and part of a family.
Yeah, thanks, Koyeli. I think it partially also answers another question that was put, which are what are the precautions we can take while conceiving or during pregnancy. to avoid later challenges in life? I'm assuming they're talking about autism. Right. There is a question from Sneha. If the child is showing his sensory behavior situational wise, then we can understand the triggers, because it's obvious for uh, different children to show emotions differently. But what if the child is always engaged in sensory behaviors when he's not excited or surprised or frightened? Maybe Dr. Koyeli, you could take that one as well.
तो अगर मुझे बराबर समझा है क्वेश्चन, तो आई थिंक यू डिस्क्राइबिंग समवन हु हैज अ लॉट ऑफ बिहेवियर्स जिन्हें सेंसरी बिहेवियर्स बोला जा रहा है. नाउ विदाउट knowing what the child's behaviors are, we are at this point we are attributing it to sensory, right? So okay, now at some point the behaviors, so it may be somebody who's stimming, somebody who's jumping, somebody, you know, so it may be to get a sensation, or it may be because that person, you know, is doing that because it's something to do, right? They may not have another way to keep themselves busy, but it's something that they know that they can do at that point to keep themselves regulated or even keep themselves busy. So if you take that one behavior away, they may replace it with another behavior that may bring them that same kind of so while I because you were saying, you know, we have been asked to find out the reason for the behavior. The reason for the behavior is not always right there, right? It's not as if कि हमने उसके से पहले क्या किया और उसकी वजह से वो sensory behavior कर रहा है. It may be so many ways in times. So I think sometimes parents will tell me, what are times when you may not see that behavior? And they may say, you know, when he or she is having fun, or when he or she is occupied in something. I think that gives us an insight into why that behavior may be happening at other times. So I think work with somebody to help figure out why that's happening. Some children with level 3 autism, along with cognitive delays, may have more stimming behaviors. So every child is different, and I think it makes sense to understand कि आपके बच्चे के autism का profile क्या है और उसके अंतर्गत वो behaviors का role क्या है.
Right, thank you. There's one more question on how about homeschooling or unschooling option if mainstream school doesn't work out? Seema or Ved, would you like to have a stab at this question?
Could you repeat the question again, please?
Yeah, so somebody is asking that is homeschooling or unschooling a good option if mainstream school gets tough for a child with autism?
Well, so personally, like what I think about it is that honestly, I'd say that some way of schooling is better than having no school at all, because education is a must. It's a priority. You need to get educated if you want to, like, you know, live or survive in this real world. So personally, I would say that if like school life is getting tough for maybe like a kid with autism, so of course it'll be a big challenge for them. So I would personally say that if homeschooling could also would be like a good initiative, because you could have like maybe a tutor or somebody, or as a parent figure, you could come to and educate your child based on whatever they need to know about the real world, and just be there for them. Like, even if you have supporting parents also who give you all the schooling you need, it's more than enough.
And Seema, for you, I think there are some questions in the chat on what you did with your child, which you've answered. I think there's one more question, which was, what role did grandparents play in Nehal's upbringing? I find it very difficult to convince them and take help. So if you can add your comments to that.
Actually, the best part with the grandparents is कि वो unconditional love देते हैं. मतलब हम लोग जज करेंगे, कभी फ्रस्ट्रेट हो जाएंगे, बट वो फ्रस्ट्रेट नहीं होते हैं. सो विद नेहल द बेस्ट थिंग विच आई गॉट कि बहुत उसको उसके दादाजी नानी दे गेव हर वेरी अनकंडीशनल लव. एंड दूसरा ये भी होता था कि जो बहुत छोटी चीजें हम सेलिब्रेट नहीं करते हैं, वो बहुत छोटी चीजें जज कर लेते हैं ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स एंड दे सेलिब्रेटेड. अरे वाह, आज तो नेहल ने ये कर दिया. एंड उससे क्या होता है, पूरे घर का माहौल बदल जाता है. एंड समटाइम्स लाइक विद नेहल, मेरी मदर हिंदी में अच्छी थी, तो वो चलो हम खेल खेल में तुमको स्टोरी सुना देते हैं. तो वो आप कितनी भी कोशिश करिए, मदर थोड़ा थोड़ा टारगेट दिमाग में लाती है, बट ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स ना एक बोनस की तरह कर देते हैं कि चलो आज कर लेते हैं. सो वो एक्सेप्टेंस जो बच्चे का, वो जो दादा दादी या नाना नानी करा रहे होते हैं ना, वो ज्यादा अच्छा होता है. और वो ब्राइब भी ज्यादा देते हैं. वो जो है ना, हम नहीं देंगे, हमको लगेगा ये तो बहुत स्वीट हो जाएगा, बट वो खोल के ब्राइब करेंगे, तो बच्चा जो है ज्यादा उनसे अटैच होता है, ज्यादा उनकी चीजें सीख लेता है, मान लेता है. वो पूरे समय टीच नहीं कर रहे होते हैं ना, वो ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स होते हैं, हम टीचर कम मम्मी होते हैं. सो द वो ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स जो भी बोल रहे होते हैं, थोड़ा बहुत भी ना वो मान लेता है. इजियर फॉर द चाइल्ड, इजियर फॉर द ममा. जो नहीं बहुत बच्चा मान रहा है, वो दादाजी को बोल दो, दादाजी समझाएंगे, बच्चा मानेगा. सो इट्स लाइक दैट.
थैंक यू सीमा. अब हम टाइम भी देख रहे हैं, वी आर लिटिल बियॉन्ड द टाइम दैट वी वर सपोज्ड टू बी देयर. Before I take another question, we have this feedback form that is shared in the chat box. So our participants, please feedback form भर दीजिए. So it's good for us to know your feedback on this session. And yeah, please fill the feedback form as we are winding up. So I was just thinking of addressing one question about, how do you react to public stares and responses when the child is having a meltdown? And I think there are already responses in the chat to that from parents, and I go with them. But yeah, I think as families, I mean, it does get uncomfortable for us. Maybe discomfort होता जरूर है. पर इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज ये है कि हम बच्चे के कंफर्ट के बारे में, लाइक एटलीस्ट दैट्स व्हाट वी यूज्ड टू डू. वी वर मोर कंसर्न्ड अबाउट our child's comfort. So I think doing what is comfortable for the child would be the right thing to do at that point of time. Yeah, and that was a really important question, and I think which all of us keep thinking about as parents all the time. So thank you for bringing that up. And with that, I think we will close the session for today, because we are mindful of time. We know you've all taken out time to be here today and spend 1.5 hours with us. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you, Seema, Ved, and Koyeli for being here and sharing your precious time with us, sharing such valuable insights, which we are all going to take home back with us. A lot of what you have shared. Thank you so much. And thank you all for being here today with us. Just before you leave the meeting, please fill the feedback form. And for caregivers or parents who are there in this meeting today, there is a little announcement. From Umeed, we have a workshop called Let's Get Started for families who have just received the diagnosis of autism. So basically just starting with your journey on as a family of a child with autism. So we'll just share the details in the chat box. So if you're interested, you could register for this workshop. And there is also one more workshop, which is I'll just that information also we will share
I've
on
shared it in the chat, Revati.
yeah. So thank you, Milton. So Milton has shared the details of that both workshops. So please take a look, and please do see if you can participate in this workshop. Both workshops. Both are for caregivers. These are not for professionals. These are for parents, families of children with autism and other disabilities. Thank you all. Thank you very much for being here with us today.